Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to week 14 of the Don't Ask Me Why podcast with Reggie and Roger. I'm Roger, and Reggie, good evening.
Good evening, greetings, and salutations, sir.
Yeah. So, week 14, we continue to chug along. A couple of things we want to talk about here in the beginning of the show tonight is we want to first of all thank our guest last week, Tyrone Drakeford, who was a fantastic guest. I enjoyed the show. I thought it was our best so far. He gave us so much insight into what it was like playing for the 49ers when they won the Super Bowl and going back to his college experience at Virginia Tech. Reggie, anything to add to that?
No, just incredibly humble, classy guy, great story, and look forward to having him in the future. But I loved it. Provided some great content and entertainment for the audience.
Hopefully we can have him come back during the playoffs or even better during Super Bowl week if we can get him back for that.
God forbid if the 49ers are back.
Oh, my God. We'll probably not get him.
Yeah. No, we're getting them. We're getting them. Tyrone, if you're listening, you will be on that Super Bowl week.
Because he did pick.
Period. We're holding them to it.
Who did he pick?
49ers and Kansas City.
49ers, Kansas City. Yeah.
We will drive to Camden and
we'll do an in-person.
Yeah, in person.
Yeah.
So don't let us drive up 85 or
and
him
charge
down
it
85.
Back, and we'll charge it back to DAMW corporate.
Exactly.
My expense report has not been, very big lately. So let's spend it all on traveling to see Tyrone for the Super Bowl week if San Francisco plays Kansas City, as he predicted. But anyway, as you guys know, we hang our hat sort of on our picks every week against the spread. And we had a 4-week winning streak, incredible winning streak before last week. And then last week, we took it on the chin. And it happens. Muhammad Ali got knocked down. Greatest fighter of all time. But Reggie, what do we give up? Do we fold like a cheap suit? What do we do here?
I mean, really, when you think about it, we really haven't fallen off. This is just a bump in the road, so to speak. And really, if we're talking about being above 500, I think we've been above 500 12 out of the first 13 weeks outside of a tie.
Right.
So as far as just being 66% and higher, we've done that quite a bit throughout the season. This is the first week where we did go below 500.
Right. We might have, out of 13 weeks, we may have had 1 week that we were below 500. But typically what we've done in the ensuing weeks is we've gone on a kind of a tear. So season to date, we are 34, 28, and four ties. And that's once again against the spread. So that puts us at 55% year to date. And we will be coming back to reclaim our turf at the end of the show tonight. Hang around for that. We're going to give you our picks for this upcoming week. And we will be back as the prophets of the prophet. So hang in there with us. So Reggie, a lot of things to talk about this week. As we get into a situation where, you get down to like 4 and 5 weeks left in the season, to me, it's starting to play out who the contenders and the pretenders are, right? I will say this. One of my picks last week was the Steelers at home to beat the 2-10 Cardinals, who apparently had laid down the week before and sort of given up. And so my apologies that I didn't foresee that Pittsburgh would lose to the 2-10 Cardinals. I didn't see that coming. But the Steelers' offense, Reggie, I think, has finally caught up with them. And I don't care if it's Kenny Pickett or if it's Mitchell Trubisky or whoever their third and fourth stringers are. They're not looking any better to me than after they fired their offensive coordinator.
Well, Roger, I think that is true what you're saying about Pittsburgh and that offense, but their opponent upcoming, it can't be worse than that. So I'm sure that they can muster more than 6 points, or 3 points for that matter, or let's just say 0 points, because they're playing the Patriots this Thursday, and that over under has to be just
20.
one for the records. Yeah, 20,
Yeah.
maybe in the teens, late teens.
Yeah.
Late teens. I haven't looked at it. Let's play that game again.
Okay.
What do you think the over-under for the Steelers and the Patriots? And that game is in Acrisure. It's in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so Pittsburgh will obviously explode. I'm thinking that they might go for 13, and I've got the Patriots, although their kicker is not very good. I'll go them for a touchdown minus the extra point. So I'll go 13-6. So I would say if the over is if the over under is like 23, I would go under.
Well, the number is 30. Now, we're telling you under. I'm telling you, you need to bet over, because that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. I'm not putting anything on this. Are you? I don't think you are either. On the over under.
No, I don't
not
have
touching
that
this.
because again, it goes against my betting philosophy. Is that I don't bet on bad teams, and it burned me last week when I picked Pittsburgh to beat Arizona. So
Yeah.
I'm not messing with that stuff anymore. However, I did have an under in the Jets Atlanta game last week. That was the game that we hit. Which the over under was like 34, and I think there was like 19 points scored.
Yeah.
So anyhow, the Browns, Reggie, they're starting to do their second half fade. And I mentioned that phenomenon kind of earlier in the year because that tends to be what they do. Now, granted, Deshaun Watson, went out mid-November, and they're having to play backups or whatever. But this is just typical Cleveland as far as I'm concerned.
I think this is a different team. The defense has shown the ability to win games single-handedly. If they can get some sort of serviceable offensive effort from the running game, I mean, just think about this. They're down there. They're QB1. They're down there, number one running back as well. So you got Chubb down. You got Deshaun Watson down. So they're crippled. So it's really, I don't want to say it's fair. It's not fair to say that they're in a swoon, but a lot of it is due to injury. So you got Flacco in there, and Flacco came in fresh off the couch and looked serviceable. They're out there talking about him like he was, the one highlight of Flacco outside of the Super Bowl, which I'm sure he's the MVP of that game, but the bomb he threw in that game against Denver to take him to the Super Bowl, and I believe in the AFC Championship, that's what is like his go-to trademark play. And so him having this big arm, you really never saw it at any other time, or just the Baltimore offices seem pretty bland with him as QB. But he's fashioned as this big arm quarterback, and he seemed to show it for the Browns this past Sunday. So if they can get some level of production from him, I think the defense is going to do enough for them to fight for a wild card. I think I think the Ravens probably have the division locked up. Cincy, you see what's happening with them. So I still like the Browns to do something. They're still in the picture.
Yeah, to me this year, you're talking about the wild cards. To me this year, wild cards probably more often than in past years are not going to be a factor this year. I just don't see it. You know, the teams that are going to make it to the Final Four in each conference are going to be teams that have healthy quarterbacks, healthy skill position players, and not a lot of injury issues, and those will be the ones that make it. You know, that's why I think that you know, Kansas City, Philadelphia, you know, all the San Francisco, if they still stay healthy, all these people, all these teams are going to be there at the end. But teams that are struggling to score, like Pittsburgh, you know, even despite the fact that their coach is fantastic, you know, and finds a way to win games against all odds, even if they get in, as Najee Harris said a couple of weeks ago, what are they going to do? You know, if they can't score more than, you know, 16, 18, 20 points. So, so, you know, I think that two teams that are headed upwards, though, are the Packers and the Rams that they've shown in the last couple of weeks. I think that Green Bay shocked me beating Kansas City. You know, even though they were playing at home, I had Kansas City. I thought that Kansas City finally turned the corner, and Green Bay. Jordan Love is starting to look like he might be something. You
Yeah.
know, starting to look like he might be a factor that people in Green Bay can start to rally behind for the next few years. What do you think, Reg?
Agreed. I think we saw flashes earlier in the season. He had a short little stint where he looked like he was kind of losing his bearings, but he seems to have gathered things. And let's not underestimate his performance against a top defense from the Chiefs. So
Right.
the Chiefs, their defense is just as lauded as their offense this year. So I think he did a fantastic job in keeping them in the game, making huge plays. I had Christian Watson on my fantasy team. He showed up. So if they can click and have that sort of Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams sort of connection, no, a wild card position is in the cards for them, I believe.
Yeah, I think they're either one of those teams. Yeah, I think the Rams and, you know, of course, the Rams have the Ravens this week, so that's going to be a good litmus test right there.
Absolutely.
I would say that if the Rams, even if they lose, if they play the Ravens really tight and lose a close one, I don't think that there's going to be any give up in them from that point on. I think that that might even be an encouragement for them that, hey, we can play with the big boys now.
1,000% agree with that because that line is right now on CBS Sports is the Ravens laying 7.
Yeah.
So that I was thinking about that. I was like, I'm pretty confident that the Ravens are going to handle business because I remember 4 years ago in Lamar Jackson's MVP season, they went out to LA and murdered them. I mean, walked them up and down the field. They tore the Rams a new one on Monday Night Football. So that memory just sticks in my head. And so that was 4 years ago. So this is a different time, different personnel. Lamar still Lamar. Stafford still Stafford. Stafford has a new pretty toy in Nakua. I think he may have had a rib injury, if I'm not mistaken. But nonetheless, they're formidable enough. I think they can compete. I did have some concern about them covering that 7 points. But to your point, wagering aside, if they are able to lose a close one, that does speak volumes to not only their division peers, but also it builds that confidence within them as well. I agree.
Right. Still with enough games left to where if they went on a little bit of a streak, they could still get there.
Now that loss will put them under 500. So let's keep that in mind. That'd be cool in the NFC South, where under 500 team is probably going to win the division. But in the West, that's a little dicey. So a close loss is cool, but a win is almost necessary.
Yeah. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about, how player injuries as one aspect of affecting point spreads and lines during the week. Like, you got three different aspects of point spreads as far as Vegas is concerned. You got the opening line, you have the current line, and you have the closing line right before game time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you had talked to me a little bit earlier about the concept of how major marquee players getting hurt can have a drastic effect on a line during the week after the opening line has already come out.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, and this is with any player, quite frankly. But I know Tom Brady had a number like a 7, or at one point, his number was 9 points. Meaning if he doesn't play, that line will shift 9 points in the other direction.
Wow.
So that was probably at the peak of his career. So I was doing a little research and I was trying to see, okay, we've had such an abnormal amount of injuries to skill position players, running backs, quarterbacks, those players that move the number. And so, I was just looking at what recently just happened with Trevor Lawrence. And it was a bad looking twist and injury. So luckily, luck, it's relative, but as far as it being a high ankle sprain, and I know that's a 2 to 3 week recovery, but luckily it was only a high ankle sprain. But prior to that, Jacksonville was favored by 3.5 going into Cleveland this upcoming week.
Right.
After that injury, it shifted to Cleveland being favored by 3. So Trevor Lawrence was worth 6.5 points.
Yeah.
So you look at Burrow and how that's going to impact the line for Cincinnati. Not only just their fortunes as a team, but from a gambling perspective, that's going to have an effect. Unfortunately, we can point to so many different instances with these quarterbacks, these skill position players, running backs, cornerbacks, star linemen, even your tackles and the horses up front. Them being injured has that effect on lines, and I mentioned this as well. That's even more credit to what high performing sports bettors. That's a feather in the cap as well, because if you're able to still be above 55%, 58%, 60% even, with what's going on with all of these injuries and all of these second string and third string quarterbacks who are playing on Sundays now, that's saying a lot. That really is. A lot of that is luck. Don't get me wrong. It's not like we have a magic ball or anything, but that does say a lot in terms of just gut feel and just knowing the game. So
yeah,
I think it's interesting.
It is. It is. And obviously you can compare it to how people pick stocks in the stock market.
Yeah.
They do it the same way. They'll bet what they call shorts, and certain, if this stock gets to this certain level, I'm going to play it. I'm going to buy it. It's no different in sports betting at all. In fact, the phrase is used for many years now that sports betting is the poor man's stock market. and I think that's kind of accurate. But we're looking to change that, and with profits for profit, so that the poor man becomes the rich man. We're working on that.
Yeah.
Stick with us.
Yeah.
So Reggie, many people are talking about it, that if you don't have a top 7 quarterback, right, an acknowledged top 7 established quarterback, your chances of making it to the Super Bowl are slim and none.
Yep.
And so if you buy into that, if you agree with that concept, which I do, then you have several teams going into next year that have big decisions to make. And, let's look at some of those. What are they going to do? Is it going to be stay, or are they going to go? Seattle, Geno Smith, are they going to stay with him, or are they going to look to move if they can move?
Oh no, they're holding on to Geno.
Okay, so you think that they can be a Super Bowl contender with him?
I think so. He's in the higher, or in the upper tier. And when I say upper tier, he's in the upper half. So if we were to split the league in half, 32 teams, he's on the 1 through 16 side of QBs. Easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah, 1 through 16.
So if you
he definitely hasn't had as good of a year this year as he did last year.
Right, but he's shown moments, and the game against the Cowboys, albeit they lost, I saw those. He made some nice throws. He's not the same Geno.
He did.
He's not the same Geno that we saw with the Giants, that we saw with the Jets.
Right.
He's.
But he is getting a little bit. He is getting a little bit long in the tooth, though.
I mean, he's early 30s, but I'll tell you this much: he just signed a 3-year, $105 million contract. So I know that. Right. So I'm not sure what of that is guaranteed. I'm pretty sure all of it isn't. But if anything, if they are having reservations, they've done pretty well in the draft as far as drafting, lower picks at the QB position for security.
His worst outing was at Baltimore.
Yeah,
this year.
Yeah, and that's again, you're playing an elite defense in Baltimore,
who was on a roll. They were on a roll.
Absolutely. But to answer that question, I say Geno is safe. They're that Pete Carroll. He's pretty loyal. I think they're good.
Okay, so let's go on down the list of QBs that I think teams have to make, very firm decisions on, no messing around. And a lot of it's going to have to do with where they draft and who's available at the time. But Kirk Cousins, Minnesota.
Out of here.
Out
of here. Gone. History.
I mean, I have to agree. He's put up good numbers for what, 9-10 years now.
Absolutely.
But he never gets anywhere beyond the first or second round.
Yeah.
And now he's coming off a major injury. And I know that his coach is in love with him, and he's so loyal to, such a great guy in the, to have on the team and in the locker room. And, we love him to death, but you can't look at major decisions like that. At some point you have to cut bait and move on.
Absolutely. And I want to say he will be going into a free agency year, if I'm not mistaken. I'm doing some quick research on that. But regardless, I know his initial contract when he signed with
left Washington.
When he left Washington, that was fully guaranteed. That was
$90 million.
Yeah, fully guaranteed. But
which these days is like chicken feed.
Chicken feed, absolutely. But you know what you have with him. If anything, I'm looking at, okay, let's see what we can what Dobbs can do. Maybe he's a glimmer of hope. We may bring in Jaren Hall back and see what he does. But ultimately you have a star wide receiver who you're in jeopardy of potentially losing
Yeah.
if you don't have an answer at QB.
Right.
And
But if they're divorcing Cousins, they're getting better than Dobbs or whoever else. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
They're not going to get rid of Cousins if Dobbs is their answer, and they have Jefferson. That's not going to happen.
He's very smart.
Daniel Jones,
Danny Dunn,
gone, huh?
Out of here.
Danny Dunn,
out of here. Hey, you ever watch this show called Showtime at the Apollo, Raj?
Yeah, we're talking about that at work yesterday.
You remember the Sandman?
We're talking about that yesterday. Yeah. We're talking about Sandman yesterday.
Yeah, and it's in Harlem. It's in New York, so it's right. It ain't too far from East Rutherford. So he can go over to East Rutherford and pull Daniel Jones and yank him off that field because it's over. Revo done. And Revo is over backwards, by the way.
Justin Fields, Chicago.
I'm not going to be as with the histrionics and pointing towards the sky or anything, but
he's had a good couple of weeks.
He has. Do I see, to answer your question, winning a Super Bowl in this iteration under this coaching staff, which I think is coming to an end? No. However, we bring in Eric Bieniemy. Josina Anderson just reported that the Bears are looking at
Bieniemy. I heard that this morning too.
Okay, so allegiances aside, if we are able to bring in someone who can bring him along, and this isn't a 1 or 2 year thing, it's to bring him along immediately, okay? Because you've had these first 3 years, regardless of the coaching situation, and it's been a mess. And it's been a mess there in Chicago. But we can't afford another 1 or 2 years of learning and getting adjusted. This is something where he's going to have to hit the floor running because, unfortunately, you have these quarterbacks like the C.J. Stroud, hell, even Patrick Mahomes, quarterbacks who are coming in immediately and making impact and making strides quicker than they used to. And so that clock is really ticking. This is really a show me period for Justin. So we'll see. But as it stands right now, no.
You say no. Okay. 2 left. Kyler Murray.
I saw a mock draft where they were picking or as the third pick, they would select Marvin Harrison Jr. So if they were to go that route, then yeah. I think Kyler Murray's in a similar position to Justin Fields where you have the remainder of the season. Injury, you can't help that right there. He had injury, so let's just kind of give him an opportunity. Can they win with him? I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to say no to that because we really haven't gotten a serious sample size of his work. And I really think he has the tools, being a dual threat, to really do some real damage in the playoffs and give teams issues if they put the right infrastructure around them.
I think that he is too turnover prone, and he's shown it. I think that when he gets running around on these Barry Sanders-like runarounds in the backfield, he will do almost anything before he will either take a sack or throw the ball out of bounds. He will go to the last millisecond before he gives up on a play. That's admirable and all that, but sometimes you got to just bite the bullet and throw the ball away or run out of bounds or whatever. And that's the thing that has been glaring to me as I've watched him when he's been healthy even, right? But he has played better since he came back from the injury, and he played really good last week. When you mentioned that, so infrastructure around Kyler Murray, what if they draft Marvin Harrison? right? To me, that just puts them right back to where they were when Kyler Murray had D-Hop in Arizona. Quarterback with an elite receiver. But that doesn't really answer to your point about him needing more infrastructure. It's going to take way more than Marvin Harrison Jr.
I agree with that, but that's a good foundation. Marvin Harrison is looking to be a generational talent, sort of like when McCaffrey came in, sort of like an AJ Brown, where they will make an impact if you get them the ball or just throw it in their area, their radius. They're making an impact. So he's that type of player. So I think it's going to be, like you said, similar to D-Hop, but I think it's going to be a lot more advanced, a lot more impactful.
And the last quarterback on the list to discuss, and again, we might need to put another disclaimer up there because it has to do with the Washington football team, of which I'm a fan. So that last quarterback is Sam Howell. And got so much respect for the kid in what was essentially his rookie year. And everybody around here knows that. He was, he sat and watched last year. He got to play the 16th last game of the year, and they beat the Cowboys. He looked really good. And he's got a lot of guts. He has no offensive line. He's run for several touchdowns.
He's also run for his life.
He's been hit. He's been hit more than a lot of cars in NASCAR.
Yeah.
And that takes a toll. He's had his bell rung, all that type of stuff. But I don't know if he's your guy to get behind. And when you add to that the other variable about the Redskins having new ownership, and then they're going to dump Ron Rivera, already got rid of Del Rio on the defense. And the new ownership will bring in an entirely new crew, GM on down, coaches on down. And, historically, new regimes like that tend to want their own quarterbacks and key players. And I wouldn't be surprised to see not only Howell gone, but the Redskins do a complete overhaul and just start from scratch now that they have new ownership. But what's your take as a yes or no on Sam Howell staying with Washington going forward?
I say yes. And one of the glaring things that I see from the outside looking in, not being there any longer, is like you said, without looking, I'm pretty confident he's the most sacked QB in the league. So we can fact check that. But
he is.
But factoring that in, but also being one of the leaders in yards, passing yards. So even being hit and touched so many times, he's still productive and he has weapons. So I agree that the ownership group with Magic and Harris, they're going to wipe the slate clean, but I still think that they're going to hold on to Howell and get him some protection. And they're going to get him an offensive-minded coach in there. So I truly believe that. So elevating the enemy would be an option, but they may have to fight some other teams.
If I am considered to become the GM of the Washington team, and I haven't been contacted yet or anything like that, but if I am, I'm going to go exactly down the same route that you just talked about, which nobody's going to take my blinders off. We're going offensive line because they have no offensive line. And you can't even gauge the effectiveness or the quality of a quarterback until they have some semblance of protection.
Absolutely.
So yeah, whoever, if it's me or whoever takes the job, it's got to be offensive line.
You all have Brian Robinson, just a young skilled player. Who's your other running back?
Well, Gibson, but he's got a little fumbling issue.
Okay.
That I don't know if it's been corrected completely.
But you got Sam Howell's old wide receiver teammate at Carolina.
McLaurin. Well, you got McLaurin.
You got McLaurin,
and
Samuel. What's the other gentleman
right.
who played along with him?
Jahan Dotson.
You got Dotson. So he has all these players, and we're still not naming a guy who he was a teammate with at Carolina. But nonetheless, he has some weapons. And McLaren at one point was a top 5 or considered a top 5, top 10 receiver in the league, and probably still is. So really, I have faith in him getting another chance and showing what he can do. And I really think that he could be a Super Bowl winning QB if you put the right pieces around him.
Gosh, you're killing me with that Carolina wide receiver for Washington that I can't remember.
Name.
He's actually come around and had a pretty good year.
Yeah.
But he's kind of like fourth buddy. Brown, DAMW.
Yep.
Brown, I believe.
Brown. Yep.
Yeah. So he's shown flashes this year.
Yep.
And it's kind of, if they keep Sam Howell around, then that would be kind of an extra security blanket for him anyway.
Absolutely.
Although NFL teams don't have enough players that they can put on a roster to have security blankets. So we're getting close to the end of the show tonight. Let's get on to our picks for week 14. This, again, Reggie, as I said in the beginning of the show, this is where we reclaim our turf, once again, become the reliable prophets of the prophet that you can count on going forward. We're not going to have 2 bad weeks in a row. You heard it here first. So, Reggie, what are your 3 picks this week?
All right. Yeah. I laid an egg last week. I have no problem admitting to that. Typically, I'm putting up a strong outing with my picks, but last week was bad. And I'm not going to use injury or anything else as an excuse. It just happens. But we'll bounce back this week. So I'm going to start out the gate. Injury is present in this game with Joe Burrow being out. I like what I saw with Browning, UW alum. But I like the Bengals +1 hosting the Colts. The Colts have been looking tough. The Colts are right there in that division fight for the AFC South. So watch out for Gardner and them. However, I do like the Bengals +1 versus the Colts, hosting the Colts.
Yeah, the mustache was impressive last week.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So he's out there, just making things tough for everyone. I like what the Colts are doing. They're a tough team, and they don't have any quit in them. So, but I do like also, going back to an over under. I like the Lions and Bears over the 44. I have a feeling that will be eclipsed pretty easily. I see Justin, again, these are desperate times, not only for the Bears, but definitely for Justin Fields. He knows the pressure's on him. So him performing at a high level, I think is incumbent upon him. And with that, I think he's going to get some TDs on the ground. He's going to get some TDs in the air. DJ Moore and Cole Kmet, they're going to snap into action. They're fresh off a bye. In that last game we had, the Bears defense looked strong, but it's not going to be strong enough to keep the Lions from putting up at least 20-some points. So I love the Lions and Bears over 44. Book that.
Yeah, I like that too.
And then finally, Ravens -7 versus the Rams. I alluded to this earlier. In 2019, in Lamar's MVP season, it was a Monday night. The Ravens went to LA, and I think it was in the Coliseum while they were working on SoFi Stadium, and they absolutely obliterated the Rams. And so I don't see the same thing happening, but I do see the Ravens covering that 7. So I'll take the Ravens -7 at home in Baltimore. Rod, just on you.
They're tough in Baltimore, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
So again, this could also be characterized as our reclamation show. this is where we take it back from last week. So I'm starting out with the Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders, getting 3 at home versus the Vikings. I feel really good about that. And I'm not even going to go into detail about it. I think that the Raiders are a rejuvenated, competitive team against whoever they play. I don't find the Vikings to be that tough right now. They embarrassingly lost at home 12-10 a couple of weeks ago before their bye. Now, I'm not worried about this at all. I like the Raiders to win that game and not even need the points. I like the Chiefs to bounce back at home versus the Bills. You got two teams that are kind of probably doubting themselves a little bit right now, but the Chiefs were certainly a little bit embarrassed in Green Bay on Monday night, and that was a pick that I missed. I felt like they would sort of bounce back and keep a little momentum going by beating Green Bay, but they just didn't show up. So I think the Mahomes and their key players will take it upon themselves at home to bounce back solid against the Bills this week. And then finally, the Eagles got really embarrassed at home against San Francisco on Sunday. Wow. And I don't care if they're playing in Philadelphia or Dallas. I think the Eagles are going to go down there and getting 3.5. I really like that pick because they're too good of a team to not bounce back after a game like that. And so I'm very confident with all three of my picks.
So that first Eagles Cowboys game, I know the Cowboys played them tough. The Cowboys have been on fire. That's going to be a good game. That's going to be a good game. That'll probably be the game that I'll have a lot of focus on outside of the Lions and Bears and the rest of my picks. But that's going to be a huge game because if the Eagles lose that game, the Cowboys would be in first place in the NFC East. So it's a lot riding. And, as we tell towards the end of the season, a lot of the fortunes are being decided in these final games.
You know what? You bet with your heart and not you bet with your head and not your heart. And with those two teams, Philly and Dallas, I don't like either one of them. Right.
Naturally.
But my head tells me that when I analyze these last couple of weeks, that Philly will be coming back very strong after that San Francisco loss. And furthermore, I said that they got embarrassed. That was kind of a misstatement there as I think about it, because they had played 3 games in 13 days, right? The schedule kind of bit them, not only in terms of 3 games in 13 days, but who they had to play during that time. So I think given the full week, I think they'll regroup and get it done. So the last thing we want to cover, Reg, is upcoming shows and upcoming guests. We have Chris once again from Hollywood Casino, a 2-time previous guest in week 1 and week 8. We encourage you to go back and watch week 1 and week 8 with Chris from Hollywood Casino to see all of his pointers and, frankly, experienced knowledge about betting on football, specifically NFL football. And as we start to head into playoff season in a few weeks, it's going to be interesting to see what he thinks coming down the stretch, who he likes even coming down the stretch to bet on. So the only other guest that we have lined up, and we have a verbal commit and I'm not going to give you the name, but we have another NFL player, big time college football star at Maryland, and played a few years in the NFL with the Colts. And so we'll give you the confirmation on who that is and when he's going to appear, hopefully on next week's show. But we're looking at 2 weeks from now for him to be on the show.
Maryland Terrapin, and he played for the Colts.
It'll be great to get more NFL players to join us as we go forward, especially if we can get them as we get into playoff
Absolutely.
season to talk about what that's like.
Absolutely. Hey,
anything else you want to add, Reg?
Do you know, and we're nearing the end of the year, and Time Magazine announces their Person of the Year. Who do you think is the Person of the Year for Time Magazine?
I think that I know this because I heard it earlier this week, and I think it's crazy, but it was Deion Sanders, right?
No.
It's
that was
Sports Illustrated.
It's your other favorite person, Taylor Swift.
Oh,
and speaking of Taylor Swift, you were supposed to perform a song for us, and you conveniently kind of just breezed past that. You were supposed to bring back like 3 Taylor Swift songs.
Unfortunately, we are at the top of the hour, and we have run out of time.
Look at that convenience peeking his head in once again.
I would be glad to do it, but we've run out of time. So take heed of our picks this week. We're not going to go 2 bad weeks in a row, guaranteed. We've got the history to prove that. When we had 1 bad week, what was it, like 6 weeks ago? And we came back, and just blew it out from there on. So pay attention this week to what our picks are. We will see you next week on Don't Ask Me Why.
The DAMW. Peace.
The DAMW. See you, Reg.